Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a very rare tag video. I don't do tag videos a lot on here. I don't know why. I just feel like I always have a hard time figuring out answers, and then I'll be going through and trying to find my answers, and then I'm like, no, I hate this. I don't want to do this video. I just want to delete everything, and then I never end up filming. But I was tagged in this tag video and it sounded really fun. This is called the Reader's Profile Tag, and I was tagged on BookTube by It's Mimi Duong, who has a great channel. I always love her videos. I love the editing that she does, so definitely go and check her out. She will be linked down below in the description. Thank you so much for tagging me. Without further ado, we're gonna get into the tag. So question number 1 says, what for you makes a good book? For me, above all, is entertainment value. You can have a book that it doesn't have great writing or doesn't really have a plot to it, but if I'm engaged and entertained the whole way through, that outshines everything else. Of course, I do like a good mix. I like when the writing's good. I like when there are quotes and different statements that really stick with me and that I can highlight and share with others. I like when there's characters that I can connect to. I like when there's an interesting plot. But even without all that stuff, as long as I'm entertained the whole way through, that's all that matters. There are definitely books that I've read and I have rated very highly just simply because I was entertained the whole way, and then other people come in and they give these books low ratings and they have actually reasonable critiques for these books, but I just have to cover up my eyes and pretend that I don't see that because I was entertained, and that's all that matters. Question number 2 is, what book are you currently reading? Right now, I am reading This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead on my Kindle. This is an ARC copy. This book releases on March 25th. It is a thriller that's kind of like true crime. It's very, very interesting. Ashley Winstead has this writing style where it's very easy for me to just stay engaged with her books throughout the whole way. You'll definitely hear me talk more about her. So that's my current read, and pretty soon I will be reading The Favorites by Lane Fargo, which I'm very excited for. Question number 3 says, what is the last book you didn't finish and why? So I actually checked. I have not, unless I'm misremembering, I have not DNF'd anything so far in 2025, which is great. Yay, round of applause. There have definitely been some things that I've thought about DNFing, but I have not DNF'd. So that would make my last DNF, or at least the last one that I documented for myself, was in December of last year. This was The Trees by Ollie Shaw, which is kind of like a magical realism, apocalyptic sort of fantasy story. I DNF'd this one just over 50% of the way through because it was moving way too slow and there was nothing happening. This book was nearly 500 pages, 50% of the way through. Why do I feel like nothing's going on? I was really, really sad because, first of all, this book has a gorgeous cover, so I really wanted to read it, and it had been on my TBR. It was on my like hard TBR for the entire year of 2024, so when I finally got to it at the end of the year and was disappointed, I was very, very let down. Moving on, question number 4 says, what obscure book do you wish other people would read? And I thought this was a fun question because I actually, once before, this was a while ago, I did film a video of book recommendations of books that were very unpopular that people haven't really heard of, and I want to do another one like that. So I was searching around which one I could shout out briefly in this video, and I decided to go with Cabbage by C.S. Fritz. This is a short little horror novella that deals with grief, and it gets very, very strange, and I really, really liked it. It was like the perfect horror for me. We have a main character whose wife has died from cancer, and he finds a magical property within his cabbage fields. So it gets strange. It is really well written. Even for being such a short story, you still feel very, very connected to the characters, and I really, really liked it. Question number 5. What is the longest book you've ever read? And I think without a doubt this is It by Stephen King. That book is like, I think, just over 1,100 pages. I've read it like 1.5 times. And this was way back like years ago, so don't ask me anything about it. Like, obviously I know the story, but don't ask me all the details because it was a while ago that I read the entire thing. I don't have a physical copy of that one, so if you want to look at just books on my shelf that I've read, the longest one would be To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. This comes in, let me get to the very end here. This is 843 pages, and now I feel like I thought this was longer. I think it's definitely is still the longest one on my shelves that I've read, but I know Swan Song by Robert McCammon I read, which was longer than that. That was 920 pages. I read that one on my Kindle. So sometimes I do dabble in the longer books. It's just not very often. The next long one that I have sitting behind me is The Stand by Stephen King, and I think that one is like 1100 or maybe even like 1300 pages. I don't know. I will be reading that eventually. I hope I can read it this year, but we'll see what happens. Question number 6 is definitely not a question for me. It says, if you could have a dinner party with 5 fictional characters, who would they be? It's a very fun question. I really like the prompt, but I am not the kind of reader that gets very, very attached to characters and they like stand out in my mind and I'm constantly thinking about them. Sometimes yes, but it's not for like good reasons. Like sometimes if a character sticks with me, it's because I'm like, damn, that person's like fucked up, or like that person had something fucked up happen to them, and it's not necessarily a character that I would want to have dinner with. So the only one that comes to mind is Rocky from Project Hail Mary. And if I'm inviting him, I have to invite our main character. Wow, I don't even remember his name. One of my favorite books, and I don't even remember the main character's name. Ryland. He would have to come to be a translator, obviously. I'm not saying more than that. I feel like if I were to really take my time and think about this question, I would end up just having like a creature dinner and just inviting different like creatures from books, because I feel like that would be really fun as long as they're not trying to eat me. As long as I'm not the dinner, then we could have a creature dinner. Question number 7 is another really fun one. This says 5 books you'd want if you were stranded on a desert island. So of course, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, one of my favorite books ever in the whole entire world. Of course I'm bringing this with me. Of course I'm gonna read it like every day. I actually do need to reread this though, because I've never reread it since the first time that I read it, because it's so like prominent in my mind. I'm really trying to get my boyfriend to read this one so that I can have somebody to like rave about it with, but he's taking his time with that. The next book that I would bring to my desert island is another one of my all-time faves. This is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid, who is one of my favorite authors. I've read this, I think, 3 times now total, and I could definitely read it again and again and again, because it's one of those books where once you've read it and you understand like what's happening, you're only going to gain more from reading it again. It's one of those books too that every time I like finish it, immediately upon finishing, I'm like, okay, let me read it again. Especially because the last line in this says, yes, you should read it, but maybe start at the end, then circle back. First though, I think you better sit down. And sometimes I wonder, like, if I did read this starting at the end and going all the way back to the beginning, would I have a different experience? And I feel like if I was on a desert island, I would do that. I would have the time to do that. I would read it forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards. I don't know why I picked this one, but it just came to me and I was like, yeah, I think I would want that if I was stranded on a desert island. And that is Dune by Frank Herbert. Of course, I would also like to bring like at least this one and Dune Messiah. If I could get like a copy where both of those are in it, then I would bring that as like one book. But I think this would just be really fun. Some escapism possibly if I'm stranded on a desert island. It would just give me the chance to get into something more deeper and more complex. And once again, if I'm stuck on a desert island, I would have tons of time to sit there and read through and really analyze every single thing that's happening and all of the politics within the world and all of the character arcs. And also having read further into the series, knowing what comes later, I think rereading this would be a good choice. So with that same thought process, I was thinking like, what is a book that I enjoyed that I think I could just read over and over and over and over again and like not really get tired of it. And so I feel like this is a good choice. We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver, because this is one of those books where there's so many like hidden messages within the story and different clues to what is going on and lore and theories. And I think this is definitely one that would keep you entertained on a desert island. I could have a little notebook. I could be taking notes on everything that's happening and trying to really figure out what's going on with this world. This is a very reality bending book. Once again, it has a lot of hidden messages and things to decode within the book. It is one of those that has a subreddit dedicated to decoding it and figuring out what's going on. And I think if I had a lot of time on my hands on a desert island, I could really dig deep into the plot of this. And last but not least, for my desert island books, I really couldn't think of what else like would be a good one. I feel like anytime you have to choose like top 3 or like top 5 of like anything, it's always the last one that's the hardest, because you're like, I have one more slot. What is going to go well with this other mix of books? And I've decided, I don't know if this is the right choice, but this is a book that has stuck in my mind since I finished reading it, and I really, really loved reading it, and that is Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. I just have such fond feelings when I think back on this book. The imagery within here, the characters, the plot, the storyline, like everything stands out so vividly inside my mind, and I think I would have a lot of fun reading this again, and I think I would have a lot of fun reading it on a desert island. Hopefully. Question number 8 says, one book you could not put down. I don't know if I'm just like, because I'm reading Ashley Winstead right now and I loved this one so much. My answer to this question is going to be The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. Like I said, she's just one of those authors, as far as like her thrillers go, where when I'm reading them, I don't know what it is. She just has this quality to her writing that makes it very, very addictive. Like, it's so easy to just sit there and binge like 200 plus pages of her books. And I don't, like, I read a lot, but I don't sit there and read that much in one sitting very often. But with this author and the thrillers that I've read from her, I have been that same way with each of them, including the one that I am currently reading. So I think like there are definitely plenty of books that I was not able to put down while I was reading it, but as of most recently, I read this one in January, and this is definitely one of those where I remember vividly a moment where I was reading this and it was getting late and I had to work the next day, and I was like maybe 2/3 of the way through and I was like, I don't want to put this down. Like, I know I have to, because I have to go to bed. I have to be a responsible adult. I have to get up and go to my job tomorrow, but I don't want to. And if I didn't work the next day, like, I would have stayed up and read the entire thing, because it was like physically painful for me to shut the book and leave it on the table and go to bed. Number 9 is kind of a juicy question. This is 5 books or authors you will never read, which is funny again because this is a video idea that I wanted to do. I wanted to make a list of like popular books that I will never read. I just thought it would be a fun idea for a video. So I have come up with a couple of these. I have 3 authors that I have read from before, but will never read from again. And the first of those authors is Colleen Hoover. I did fall into the Colleen Hoover trap at the very beginning. I've always been a reader, but after high school, I kind of fell off. And then shortly after that was like the rise of like Book Talk and Bookstagram. And like, it's always kind of existed, Bookstagram and BookTube, but you know, things really picked up, especially during the pandemic, and Colleen Hoover is one of those names that you were seeing everywhere. You still do see it everywhere, especially on Book Talk, and I fell into that trap because I was getting back into reading and I needed recommendations, and that was something that I saw a lot of. So I've read quite a few of her books, but I don't think I will ever read from her again. I think there's definitely a lot of questionable and controversial things that she has done as a person and content within her books that I'm not a really big fan of, and I just don't want to support that. And it's like, I could read her books because I've always looked at her books as like, this is just like an easy book to read. Like, her books I can read so quickly because there's like, oh, this is gonna sound mean. I'm sorry if you're a Colleen Hoover fan, but I feel like there's not really like a lot of substance to her books, and so I don't have to think really hard about it. Like, I know I can pick up a Colleen Hoover book and like sit down and it feels like 20 minutes and then I'm done with it. So that's just not what I'm interested in reading anymore. The other author that I will never read from again is Frida McFadden. I have read The Housemaid by this author, and was very suspicious after finishing it because I was like, I feel like I've read a book with this same plot before, and other people have pointed it out, and I think it's very clear at this point. A lot of people kind of know that not all, I don't want to say all of her books, but a good majority of Frida McFadden's books are just recycled ideas and things that are taken from other popular thriller books, and then she just makes them, but they're like not as good. I don't know, just not really a fan. It kind of rubs me the wrong way when the one book that I've read from her kind of felt like a cheap copy of another thriller book that I actually do really enjoy. And then I've just heard some not great things about some of her other books people have read, and it just, once again, she is like one of those authors for me that is kind of in the same vein as like Colleen Hoover, where they're like, okay, yeah, like there's sort of an appeal because I know I could pick up a thriller by this author and get through it very, very quickly and then be done with it, and I don't have to really think hard about what I'm reading, but that's not really what I want to dedicate my time to, and not really the sort of author that I would like to support. On that note, the third author that I have listed that I will never read from again is Mel Robbins. I just recently did a video talking about her book, The Let Them Theory, and it kind of popped off a little bit. I know I got a lot of new subscribers from that, so if you are one of the new subscribers who found me through that video and you're watching this, thank you so much for sticking around and checking out my other content. I had a lot of issues with that book and a lot of issues with this author as an individual and the way that she is operating her business and the messages that she is spreading, and she is just not somebody that I want to support, and I would strongly urge that other people don't support her either, but we are all our own people and are free to do what we want. So in addition to those three authors that I will never read from again, I have two books that I'm not really interested in reading. The first one is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. I don't know why, this has just always been one of those books that I always hear people talk about it, and I hear people talk about it and they love it. They like rave reviews, like 5 stars, this is the best book on the planet. Like, I've seen it everywhere. But anytime I hear the synopsis pitched, I'm like, that sounds like horrible. That sounds so boring. And I think I just have like a bad idea in my head because I read one Ottessa Moshfegh and I did not enjoy it. And so the way that that was written and my feelings towards that other book, I feel like are going to be the same towards this one. It just doesn't sound fun. But I will let you know a little sneak preview for a reading vlog that I do have coming up. I want to do some author taste tests this year, and hopefully into the upcoming years as well. And the first one that I'm going to do is Ottessa Moshfegh. I will not be reading My Year of Rest and Relaxation, but I will be picking up some of her other books and we'll see how those go. So that is one that's kind of tentative. Like, I could possibly change my mind on that, but as of right now and for the last, I don't know, couple of years that I've been hearing about this book, it has been like a hard pass for me. Also, for the last book for this question is Fourth Wing and like that entire trilogy. There was a point in my life where I did consider reading Fourth Wing, and when I was still like dabbling with fantasy and like very, very new to fantasy, I thought maybe this would be a good one because so many people have been loving it. But I've watched some spoiler reviews and I've watched a lot of people talk negatively about it, things that they didn't enjoy, things that didn't make sense within the books and within the series, and it just doesn't sound like something that I would enjoy. I think it's definitely one that I could read, but I don't think I would like it. And question number 10, the last question, says, if you were to write a book, what would it be about? So I think, like, of course, if I was gonna write a book, I would want it to be horror, and I would want it to be weird and like abstract and strange and gross and dark. I'm definitely lacking the literary skills to make that happen. I don't think that it would be written very well if I were to write a book, but that's kind of the vibe that I would want to achieve. Like, I would want to have unlikable characters for sure. I would want shit to get like nasty and gross and dark and disturbing. Like, I want some people that are like fucked up, deeply fucked up, and display that in their actions. But then there's also like weird, abstract, fever dream stuff happening. That, I think, would be the book that I would write if I were going to, but like I said, I'm lacking a lot of skills to make that happen. Also, no, I have no idea what the plot of this would be, but I'm thinking we would have an unhinged female main character. Maybe there would be a creature in there. Maybe there would be like a relationship with this creature and our unhinged female main character. There would definitely be a lot of blood. Other than that, I can't really say anything else. It's giving like, I have concepts of a plan, which I'm so sorry for quoting that man. But that is the last question for the reader's profile tag. So of course, at the end of tag, you're supposed to tag other people, but I'm really bad at that also. I know I've seen a few people that I'm subscribed to and interact with already doing this tag or have already done it in the past. So if you're watching this and this is not a tag that you have done before and you would like to do it, then I am tagging you. If you're watching this video and you want to do this tag, then congratulations, I have tagged you. And now you have to do it. So with all of that being said, that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this video, I want you to comment down below and give me one book that you would bring with you on a desert island, because I think that's the question I'm the most curious about. I think is a really fun question. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you guys next time.